and welcome to Growing Up Weird, the podcast where we explore how the earliest chapters of Western childhoods shape the health stories that we then carry into our adulthoods. I'm Dr. Greg Dickens, scientist and consultant in medical innovation, and I am here with Dr. Gwen Bradbury.
Hello.
Who is a healthcare researcher, author, and your guide through the science, stories, and traditional strategies that connect childhood beginnings to lifelong good health. Each week, we dig into the newest evidence, understand how it links together, and walk through some of the changes that we in the West could make to give kids decades of better health. So, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a healthcare professional, or simply curious about how the body and brain develop over time, you're in the right place. Are you ready? Have you got a cup of tea? Good.
This week, you'll notice two things. One is we're not starting, as ever, with the news. And two is that we're in video. Like 3 dimensions, this is what I look like as a person. And look, there are 2 others. One apparently down there and one somewhere else. I don't know how the screens are arranged. But, Gwen, who is this other person on this call?
Well, Greg, I'm really excited to welcome Kirsten Karchmer, who is joining us today for a discussion about fertility.
Oh, cool.
And Kirsten's got decades of experience treating couples facing infertility. We're going to have a cracking conversation, but we figured we might as well start, as ever, with the news.
Nice.
So, I have a paper by Simpson et al. Published in JAMA Dermatology. And this is a topic, Greg, we've talked about quite a few times. And the title of the paper is Emollients, that means moisturisers, to prevent paediatric eczema. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Tell me what you're thinking, Greg.
I'm thinking emollients is only one of the 3 types of moisturiser. Did they really mean emollients?
They did mean emollients, but I thought you were going to say, hang on a moment, I thought we've already talked about evidence that suggests that moisturisers or emollients don't prevent paediatric eczema.
Yeah, fair point.
And that was my thought when I first saw the title of the paper. So I thought, right, let's dig into this, because every time I see a paper that contradicts like one of my mental models, I think, right, okay, I need to learn this, need to build it in. So I looked at this paper. It looks really good. 1,200 mother-baby dyads, randomised controlled trial based in the US. Daily moisturiser use for these babies from 9 weeks until 2 years of age. And the outcome was eczema diagnosed by a doctor, which all sounds, it sounds like a really good trial. So this is why the results are extremely interesting. And what they found was that eczema rates in the babies that were moisturised were about 36% at 2 years. And in the control group that wasn't moisturised was about 43%, with a bigger effect in children without family members with eczema. Now this is surprising. As I've said, there's a bunch of big studies before that have said actually there's no effect on prevention and it might worsen the risk of skin infections. So this is a kind of a conflicting result. And what's particularly surprising, if I said, 43% of children in a supposedly kind of population representative study with eczema, what would you say about that figure?
I would say, where is this population from?
This is apparently US. It's pretty high, right?
Kirsten, you're in the US.
It's really high.
It's really high. And so I went back and I thought, hang on, is this really a representative sample? 2-year-old children in the US, are we expecting 4 in 10 of them to have eczema? And actually the most recent big study I could find, which was 250,000 US children, finds a prevalence of 12%. So we're talking now 3 times higher reported in this paper. And I couldn't find any other paper that suggested rates are this high. And then you start to look at there are some differences between the numbers they report around the kind of reduced risk with moisturisation and actually the confidence intervals on the graph. So there are some, on the graphs that they show, the confidence intervals suggest non-significant. So there are a few pieces in this study that don't quite add up. So my conclusion really is that yes, it's gold standard methodology. Yes, it's a really big study. But that prevalence of eczema is surprisingly high and we've got some conflicting results. So at the moment, I'm still withholding judgment. I'm looking at the broader evidence base. It's an interesting one. It will be good to see if anything follows up, but it's not something that I would suddenly recommend changing current practice on. So there you go. I'm not going to say bad science because I don't know all the nuances here, but some surprising science.
That is interesting. I wonder.
I mean, I still can't figure out, we have a real problem, a real diet problem in the US if 42% of the 2-year-old populations have eczema.
Right.
Yeah.
And in those emollients, Were there BPAs and phthalates?
So so they
I
had.
would love to know.
That was another criticism of the paper, that they had 5 different brands and they were quite poorly defined. So people have picked up on that as well, because they weren't particularly specific about exactly the one. So yes, you're absolutely right. It's just surprising.
It's making my skin itch thinking about what else could have been in with their emollient ingredients. But what it makes me think is, what were their diagnostic criteria? If you've set your diagnostic criteria that sensitive that you're picking up 2 out of 5 kids are positive, then what else is being included along with what we would call eczema, and how is that being affected by moisturizers?
Yeah.
Well, is it just dry skin? Right,
It
not
could be.
necessarily a pathology, but
Yeah.
the child is dehydrated, like which you see a lot.
Maybe.
Because obviously, if you're using an emollient and the child is dehydrated, it will repair that surface problem.
So
When you could have just given them water at the same time. That would have been an interesting control. That would have been really interesting to run this as a control group, to give the population adequate hydration for that same period of time.
Interesting.
It
Anyway, there you go.
asks more questions than it answers.
Exactly, but I thought it was a good one, because we often say, oh, look how cool this study is, and this is a cool study, it's got an interesting finding, but we also, have to be a little bit critical when we're looking at any sort of data.
All right.
What's yours, Greg?
My dear viewer, I've just realised that you're going to see me throughout the course of this evening looking off camera like that. That's because in real life, although it looks like she's there-ish, Gwen's over there. I keep having to try and look at the camera or look at her on screen, and she's actually over there. So enjoy the view of the side of my face.
It's your better side.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The thing that I was going to raise also is weird science. It seems like it was a big week for weird science. I have a paper that is reported on the Nature website aggregator, but was really published in Pediatric Research, big journal nonetheless, by Zhuji Gao and others from Fujian Medical University, which they said magical ingredient X was detected in urine, and it was moderately strongly associated with a healthier body fat distribution measured by DEXA scanning and other body composition analysis, calipers and measuring and all that. And they then said, well, if this stuff is showing up in the bodies of people who are a much healthier shape, well then surely we should be giving this thing to people. It is a new approach to raising the health of people. And that all makes sense. Until I tell you the magical ingredient is lignan. And lignan is a major component of the outer shells of whole grain seeds and beans and flaxseed and tougher bits of vegetables.
Are you telling me that fruits and vegetables are good for you?
Oh, no, I didn't go that far. What I said, Gwen, who's down there somewhere, was a magical marker that shows you've been eating lots of fruits and vegetables is associated with being a much healthier shape. And therefore we should give people this magical marker.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's...
There's an ancient Chinese secret.
Yeah, I
just give them vegetables and fruits.
Oh my goodness.
It really bugged me. I was reading this paper and I got to the end. I was like, great paper, yeah, you've shown another way of checking that somebody's getting fruits and vegetables, and you've shown again that fruits and vegetables are good for your body. They have said you should give them lignan, which is absolute nonsense. Well, it's like 92% nonsense. 4% good.
It's just so reductionist, isn't it? Nonsense. It's like okay, we've identified this particular component, which
so frustrating.
Yeah,
it's so close to making some sense. Anyway, there you go. There's my bad science for the week. Which means it's your turn, Kirsten. What have you got?
One that I'm most excited about is a new study was published on a company that is using AI to read mammograms.
Oh, cool.
And what they're finding is they were able to demonstrate in the study that they're able to identify neoplasms and breast cancers 5 years earlier.
Oh, that's nice.
Wow, that's a lot.
So I'm excited to see how this will apply to even other cancer diagnostic tools, especially as someone who's had skin cancer bunch of times. I'm hoping that they're going to be able to use AI to start identifying skin cancers and their probability of being problems and things like that as well.
I was at a talk just today on the future of healthcare, and we talked actually just about holding up your phone and just looking at your body, because often doctors pick up, you're here for X, but actually you've got an ear thing that I'm more interested in. That's what exactly you can talk about, skin cancer, the sort of early detection piece is so important.
At Conceivable, we're working on this face scan technology. What we'll be able to do is you just hold your camera up and we can get body composition, we can get blood pressure, we can get heart rate variability, VO2 max. Wow. And I think we're going to move away from wearables and we're going to be using vision plus AI to understand what's happening medically with somebody, which I think is really exciting. We have a wearable and it's actually able to monitor blood sugar with non-invasively, right? With light.
That's cool.
And I never believed that would be possible.
Democratizing healthcare.
It sounds like a really good point, actually, Kirsten, for you to just introduce yourself in a little bit more depth. Tell us about Conceivable. Tell us about you.
Yeah, just really quickly. So, I had an unusual path to get here. I was a linguistics professor, and then I got diagnosed with MS, and I couldn't walk. I was really sick, and I ended up going to see an acupuncturist that I did not want to go see, right? I was against my will, and I told my friend who took me, this is like going to a psychic. It's a total scam. This is not a thing. And it ended up not being a scam at all. I ended up going into remission, over the course of a couple of years, and really got interested in Chinese medicine, especially because in Chinese medicine, every single aspect of a woman's period and cycle is incredibly diagnostic. It's just this missed opportunity in healthcare to have deep understanding about what the subclinical factors are that are impacting her health, her period, and her fertility. And it is the gateway to democratizing access to women's health because, like in Chinese medicine, they say you're never treating anything, you're always treating everything. So it's really this very systematic approach to finding all the small underlying factors, even if they're small, like not drinking enough water, right? It's not a disease state, right? It's a habit that will be contributing to lower cervical discharge, right? And so exercising to exhaustion has been shown to decrease the likelihood of getting pregnant by 70%.
Wow.
So we have women, we should talk about that study, it's pretty interesting, but we have women who think they're doing all the right things, kind of following Instagram, right? They're too lean, they're not eating enough, and they're eating a lot of protein bars and shakes and things like that, like not real food. They're over-exercising, they're not sleeping, they're exhausted, their gut's in terrible place, they're a vegan. And so, but they think, I'm doing everything right. I'm CrossFitting, I'm a vegan, I eat all these protein shakes. Like, if you told your doctor that, they'd be like, high five, you are crushing it. But then we look at her cycle, at her blood sugar, at her digestion, at her gut function, at her HRV, her stress, and all of it's in the trash. And you're like, well, that's why you're not getting pregnant. The foundation is so fundamentally broken. So this gives us an opportunity to work across many, many, many varieties of presentations, because every woman who is not getting or staying pregnant or has period problems is doing, her presentation is unique, right? So our AI is checking in with her every week. Oh, how's this going? She's looking at what she, basically we give her a to-do list. And so the AI is checking, is she doing her to-do list? And is the to-do list producing the change each month that we expect? And if it's not, then she goes back to the woman and says, hey, you're doing all these things. It's not producing the result that I expected, so I'm going to change what we're going to do. Or conversely, hey, you don't have any cervical discharge. We talked about trying to drink more water. Help me understand if it's because you're not thirsty, which is a clinical, right? The decision tree goes clinical, right? Why isn't she thirsty? Or is it because you're forgetting, which is behavioral? So we get this bidirectional feed of information that can follow her across her whole life cycle.
And of course, the more people use it, the better it learns, the more accurate it becomes with time. Gotta love a learning system.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
I do love a learn, and I love, we're just about to start building our own language model, because we want to lock it down. We want that to be impenetrable. So there's never going to be anybody saying we leaked anything, because it is not going to be leakable, because we're going to just put such a big moat around it, because especially in the political climate for women's health, it's never been more important to protect people's privacy.
Well, I can see entirely why you have invited Kirsten onto this. The links between how fertility is built on a foundation that stretches back years and is a million different variables combining to produce this optimum is precisely the same theme as growing up weird, where your adulthood is built on millions of variables stretching back years, in some cases generations, to produce this current and constantly evolving state. So yeah, we get it. Gwen, definitely.
And absolutely, we talk about long-term health, but from a very biological perspective, not everyone needs to reproduce, but fundamentally throughout our history, the capacity to breed is an important marker.
Exactly, because it's not it's not our job to reproduce. It is our opportunity if we choose to, and if we do, my feeling about it is that that women and the health of women, their health is the strongest predictor of the health of the offspring, and why we would not educate them correctly from the earliest age. In Texas, my state, you're getting a sense of like how conservative it is here. The only sex ed that kids get is abstinence. Like the thing you want to do more than anything, they're like, yeah, but don't do that. And actually, we're not going to tell you anything about it. So much to the fact, I did meet an older gynecologist one time, fertility, like he did fertility, but like he was a gynecologist. And he told me he was working with a young couple. They were like 23 and they were like, it was in a very rural town and this was before the internet. And they were trying to get pregnant. They're like, we do it like 2 times a week. And the husband says, she hates it.
Oh no, I know where this is going. Even if he didn't.
No, worse.
Oh, really?
And she hates it, and so the doctor says, well, he goes, I always start with a physical examination. So he examines the guy, everything's fine there. He examines the woman, and her umbilicus, her belly button, was like so red and irritated, and she was overweight, so it's like a little bit of a fupa. No. And he goes, what's going on here? You have like some eczema. She put some emollient on it, and he was like, what's going on? And he goes, and he goes, tell me when you do have sex, like, tell me exactly what you do. And he goes, well, I just put it in, and she just kind of cries a lot, and then, I try to finish as soon as possible. And he goes, show me on her body exactly where you're putting it in. And he pointed to her belly button.
Wow.
2 years they've been having sex that way. But it only share that to just demonstrate. We think, like, in general, everybody knows what to do. And now with the internet, it's a lot easier. But at the same time, I think in certain populations where actually, I met a woman once and I was like, why haven't you looked this up? And she's Muslim. And she's like, it just wouldn't be appropriate for me to be searching that. That's not appropriate. And so, starting as young as possible. I was on a show the other day and the dad was a gynecologist and he told me something so sweet. He was like, he goes, whenever my wife is having her period, I always just try to get involved, and we do things like, Mama, we're going to go to, he takes his daughters to the grocery store, like, let's get some tampons. And then even he told me that they take the tampons and they practice inserting them into like beer bottles.
Nice.
Just to start to break, just so it's not a weird thing, it's not a secret thing, it's not they used it as stickers one day and they created maxi pad art and stuff. And I was just like, oh, that is good parenting, right? That. Because if we're going to make fertile girls, right, if we want to build a few fertile, we have to have girls not thinking their period is a curse.
Yeah.
We have to teach them that it's normal, that it's actually, it's actually very beneficial for our bodies. It's our check engine light, and there's all kinds of things that we can include there.
With Halloween coming up, have you both done tampon ghosts?
So I do remember this. I showed it to Greg in a magazine, in a like women's magazine. It was like saving money. I was like, how do you know how expensive tampons are? It's like put little googly eyes on tampons. I was like, wow, you have not bought tampons for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, ridiculous.
It's true. You can't do much with the makeup other than like put it on a little gremlin.
Yeah.
Oh well, folks, we should get in.
They do work great for nosebleeds.
Tampons or menstrual cups.
I thought you meant not menstrual cups.
Tampons.
I was going to say,
yes,
how big are nostrils? I can see they're not that big, Kirsten.
I thought you just sat there with like a little supping cup. Anyway, we should get on to talking about the article. This may be a weird podcast, but it is not a weird week. Gwen has, as ever, somehow managed to magic out an article, which I read. It's very nice. Kirsten, did you get a chance to have a look through?
I did.
It's good, yes. Right? Where are we starting with this one?
I think one of the places that I think was particularly interesting when you were talking, Kirsten, you were giving the example of a woman who feels like she's doing exactly the right thing. She's obeying everything she's done or heard on Instagram. She's optimized, she's thinking about her nutrition. She's thinking about her exercise. She's making a lot of very conscious decisions. Mm-hmm. I guess what I wanted to do in this article was actually to go back. Like, what are the very unconscious decisions and what are the very unconscious things that we are priming children in very early years years, not only around, you know, the foods that they want to eat, the foods that they choose to eat, where they find comfort, but then also as they get older, you know, what are the things that they are exposed to, you know, usually completely inadvertently. And as they, you know, as they enter the time where they're starting to build their cycles, what is it that we do to girls, you know, in that period, in that kind of, you know, peripubertal period that affects the trajectory of their fertility?
Then I guess I've got a question for both of you, the expert and the article writer. What do you see as the earliest ways to boost adult fertility, female fertility?
The earliest ways?
Yeah, and that question goes to
we were
both of you.
talking about, it's really about the thing that parents can do to really promote this is to promote menstrual health. And to promote menstrual health, we have to promote the relationship that girls have with their periods. So I think when we were talking in the pre-show, you know, I have several 100,000 followers on this one TikTok that's about periods, and it's mostly girls who have not had their first period. And when I was doing a live with them during the pandemic every day, I'd have 5,000 girls on the call a day, every day. And I never got to the end of the questions, right? But what was so pervasive was the shame, right? They would say, I got my period, Kirsten, and I don't know what to do. And I was like, go tell your mama. And like, I can't, it's too embarrassing. And I was like, your mama is not gonna make you feel bad. I promise you, just say, Mama, I got my period. Can you take me to the store? I need to go get some stuff. And if she doesn't come back and tell me, I'll tell you what to do next, you know? And they're like, I can't do it. And, you know, one girl was telling me, she's like, we're really poor. And this seems disgusting, but it's important. This is a really important thing. She's like, can you get sick using used pads? And I was like, tell me more. And she goes, well, my family really doesn't have any money, and my mom says we can't afford menstrual supplies. But when I go to school, I'm too scared that I'm going to bleed on my clothes. And so I go in the bathroom and I look in that little tin box to see if there's some that are not too used. And then I put some Kleenex over it and try to repurpose it. And I was just like, we have work to do, right? In any world in which those kinds of things are possible, we really need to do a better job, which is why I love this paper, because we can do so much at the beginning. We have to get rid of the shame and the things that we're talking about, how dads can help with that and moms, and just dismantling this conversation. Like, we can change, look at Gloria Steinem's article on if men could menstruate. If men menstruated, she says menstruation would be the coolest thing on the planet. If men menstruated, men would make us feel bad because we didn't menstruate.
Yeah, I mean,
if men had
what are you talking
periods,
about? If I could spray blood
shirts.
out.
Yes, it'd be like, check this out. When they were having their period, like, fuck yeah, I'm on the rag, or, you know?
Yeah.
And it'd be this, like, great thing. And we have to switch that for our girls, right? That you're the future of the species. This is so cool. You're the future. That's awesome. You don't have to have kids, but if you do, you are the next generation. You get to be the person that creates the next generation. That's an honor. That's super cool. That's amazing. That's superhuman. Like, we can change this. I'm working on a graphic novel for them right now where this girl goes through puberty, and as she's going through puberty, first she's in black and white when she's prepubescent, and as she starts changing, which is the thing that girls don't want, you know, my boobs are growing and, you know, whatever. Each time she gets a little change, she gets a little bit more color in her. But then by the time her period finally comes, she's in like technicolor and she's a superhero. And, you know, these are the kinds of messages, because when women have a positive relationship with their menstrual cycle, it's much easier to help them to repair it, to work with it, and not have this mindset of like, this is a curse, this is filthy, this is something to embarrass. The first, you know, as a linguist, and, you know, when I first read this study that like 80% of women had life-interrupting menstrual pain and PMS, I was like, how do I not know that after 20 years in women's health, right? All the women that I worked with in my clinic had PMS and cramping, but I thought that was because they were infertile, not because all women are really suffering. And when I read that, I was like, well, we have to do something about this. We have to, and where did that come from? And so from a linguistics standpoint, I started just going back to the very beginning of written language. What was the earliest documents talking about, public documents? Because 3,000 years ago, we can find text in Chinese medicine. Well, the first thing that I found was the Bible. And in the book of Leviticus, the first publicly written thing about menstruation was, that thing is so vile, it's as vile as a menstruating woman or the devil.
Wow, that's quite a
There's a level
comparison.
to set.
Yeah.
Why are girls ashamed of their period? That's why. Right after that, Aristotle said women are the inferior species because they menstruate. They produce the soil in which the seed can grow. The man contributes the seed, which contains the spirit and the intellect. And that was that existed for 17 centuries.
Yeah, and while I'm not sure many people have read Leviticus, everybody's reading Aristotle. But no, yeah, fair shout.
I read them.
Yeah.
I was joking.
Of course, that's like, pre-discovery of the ovum and things like that. But nevertheless, it's my opinion that, this was generational conditioning. And that's hurting women's fertility now, because when women can't get pregnant, they're like we said, I'm doing everything. But what everything is kind of CrossFit and, whatever. Things that are actually not actually making a material difference for them.
Okay, so to summarize, the earliest intervention you would like to see is a better relationship of girls at the age of menarche with their period, with the idea of the cycle and being not just comfortable but utterly in love with this 28-day fertility and body checking cycle, right?
Yeah. So many women struggle with this.
That's fair. Gwen, I suspect that you would like to see earlier interventions than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Kirsten, what is so important, and what I really, I hear from you talking is around, a woman's experience of menstruation, what she expects going into it, what she experiences when she's there. But I'm, interested in looking even earlier, because there are many factors that dictate what that experience looks like. And I think, when I went through puberty, I had no idea the kind of things that would influence how much pain I felt, how heavy my periods were, how much my skin symptoms changed, how much my gut symptoms changed. And so I think that, setting bodies up in a lower inflammatory state, so making sure that nutrition-wise, we've got healthy kids, we've got kids who are eating a diverse and varied diets, who have good gut health, who have good metabolic health.
Do we want to chuck in a very short thing on what a low inflammatory diet looks like?
Yes. Oh, Greg, thank you for volunteering. You do that.
Like
pass back to me. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think it should be full of lignans.
Yeah,
I agree.
Lots of lignans.
Dose them, if you only eat donuts and raw aged steak, just make sure it's absolutely covered in lignan and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like just flax oil.
Just chuck it on there. Okay, ignore that advice entirely, anybody who's not versed in sarcasm, but try to make sure that you are high in diverse forms of fibre, because it reduces the inflammation caused by low fibre gut. You want your gut to be full of fibre, that'll keep it happy and healthy and keep inflammation out of your blood. You also want to stay away from meat, especially meat that's anything like humans. So for visitors in Africa, do not eat monkeys. The closer your meat is to a human being, the more inflammation it's going to cause. Red meat, therefore, is worse than white meat, which is worse than fish, and if you can just eat bugs, that would be best. Bugs includes prawns and mussels. If you need animal protein, there are your nice low inflammatory options.
And intermittency is better than continuity. So a small bounce, you're going to do it.
Getting there. As she said, intermittency is better than constancy. So if you're going to have, a hamburger, have a hamburger. Just don't have one tomorrow, right? Or the day after. If you're going to enjoy a steak, have a steak. Don't worry about it. Just don't have one tomorrow. Fine. The next thing is sugar. Sugar is a truly incredible inflammatory booster. If you need to be really, really inflamed and, red and puffy and struggling, jump on that sugar, really get it down you. And the faster the sugar, the better. So just soluble sugar in a drink, even more inflammogenic than sugar on the outside of something, which is even more inflammogenic than sugar in the middle of something. But just stay away from sugar if you can. So, low sugar. Lots of different vegetables, not chopped up into tiny pulp like in a smoothie, but actual chunks of vegetables, and easy on the red meat. And if you're going to do red meat, don't do it every single day. How's that? No inflammation.
I have a follow-up question on. Tell me why not chopped up. What would be different than putting kale in the blender versus having? I don't digest really fibrous things very well, so. Often, even if I'm making a smoothie, which I don't make very often, but sometimes I'm like, I need a whole bunch of vegetables. I'll cook the kale and actually put it in a smoothie. And so you think that that is less effective? Tell me the thinking behind that. I haven't heard that before.
Two reasons. One is that the fibrous mat that is made in your stomach and intestine by the chewed up bits of strings of plants that you eat is a great way to get fibre and other ingredients down to the colon, where they will be eaten by your colonocytes, where they'll be eaten by your microbiome, or your microbiota, and the product of that are then eaten by your colonocytes, and that is good and reduces your inflammation. The other reason is that the cell contents from those fruits and vegetables, sorry, I'm sitting at the door, it's quite uncomfortable. The cell contents are kept in the cells if you just cook them and eat them, but let out of the cells if you smoothie them. Letting those contents...
I did not know that.
Yeah, most modern smoothie makers, in fact, pretty much everything since the year 2000, it goes fast enough to break up cells. That releases their contents. That means that any sugar inside them hits the liver as fast as it would from, say, a Coca-Cola, but also means that any nutrient quantity in there that would otherwise have reached the lower intestine doesn't. It gets
with
digested.
the fiber.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
it's better than nothing, sure. But
Yeah,
it's
so
not as good as
cooked kale blended in orange juice, better than orange juice. The kale, actually, blending kale, because it doesn't have a high quantity of sugar, is not like that big a deal. The bigger thing is blending the sugar out of the fruits and vegetables, because your body expects not just fibre, but fibre as a package around the cells of the plant.
There you go.
That makes sense.
So,
thank you.
Gwen, you were saying you want kids to be raised low inflammatory?
Yeah, raised
What
low
else?
inflammatory. And the other big one, because I'm keeping an eye on time here, the other big one that I want, that I think is really important, is getting kids moving in a biomechanically natural way. Because we know that the more hip movement, the kind of stronger your hip muscles are, the more you alter blood flow to your uterus, to your genitals, to your kind of reproductive organs. And actually what that means is that when you start to have period cramping, actually if you have good blood flow, better blood flow to your uterus, you get less significant pain, because the pain is a lack of oxygen in effect. It's that kind of burning sports related pain. So if we can get kids who are used to doing the normal body movements, which is lots of walking, sitting on the ground, it's resting in different positions, it's not sitting with right angle hips and right angle knees for hours on every day, that just sets up uteruses that grow with better blood supply, which means that when puberty hits, all of those symptoms are better. And if we can have periods that are less uncomfortable, and I totally take your point, the expectation, the perception is an enormous component here, but actually if you have reduced physical symptoms, reduced physical sensations, there's a less bad experience, but also less desire to then want to control your periods, to remove your periods, which is when you end up with adolescent girls who are very keen to take birth control, not necessarily to stop pregnancy, but actually to get rid of those pesky periods. But actually that adolescent period is such an important time where we are establishing our normal sex hormones, our menstrual cycles, that we really don't want to be using hormones in that period while we are establishing our normal menstrual cycles. So I kind of feel it's a laddering there.
I guess, sorry, I gotta stop.
Well, let me interrupt for just 1 second, because it's like, as I mentioned, the two things that the girls told me from my TikTok years with them was, the first one was, when is my first period going to come, and how do I make it come faster?
Oh, yeah.
And I think this ties into the paper, because in my mother mind, I was like, oh, I can manipulate them just in the way that I want. So I built a tool, like a predictive analytics tool to predict your first period. And then I was getting 1,000 emails per week. 1,000 girls a week were taking this quiz, right? And it's free. And so then I just created a drip campaign, just as a first thinking, because this is going to go on our technology at some point, about like exactly what you're saying. You want your period to come sooner and you want it to be easier. Your period is a reflection of your health. This is what you need to do. You need to track how much sleep you're getting. You need to track how stressed you are. You need to come up with ways to cope with your stress. Here's some ideas, all of those things, because we can use that as the carrot to get the period to come sooner, because I guess they're like thinking that makes them more womanly or whatever. We use that as the carrot, and it's like, if you're eating a lot of sugar and drinking a lot of soda, your period is going to be harder and it's going to come later, right? Because you're glucose is going to impact ovulation. And so, that way we're using that as sort of the motivator even before the period comes, while we're training them like, yay, periods are amazing.
Let's go into a bit more detail about what can be done now, or at least the future of what could be done now. Kirsten, can you tell us a little bit more about the future of your work and how people can get involved if they want to, or what they can get from it?
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite topic right now. So what we're ultimately building, is the first operating system for women's health. And essentially an end-to-end experience where a woman builds a relationship with her virtual care team as early as possible, 7, 8, 9 years old, right? Where we can teach her sex ed, we can teach her all about her body, we can help cultivate that relationship that we were talking about, we can teach her habits. And then as she's going through life, like whatever's coming up, if she has PCOS, if she has endometriosis, she can't get pregnant, if she's in menopause, postpartum, the virtual care team already knows everything, right? And can help her along that whole journey bi-directionally, so that the AI can continue to learn. Like, the user is giving her data, the AI is giving her instructions, we're measuring how that's working, how it's not working, evolving the technology so that over her whole life cycle, we get this end-to-end experience, very consistent. And then we use that as the foundation, and then we let the doctors do the stuff that won't work. So we can cut down on healthcare costs immensely. We really want to build a platform that solves most of women's health problems for almost nothing. And if you're excited about this, I need you, because what I'm building is something that's kind of impossible. And so if you're interested in this at all, please reach out to me. Either you can email me at Kirsten, my first name, Kirsten at Conceivable. If you can't remember that, go to conceivable.com, our website.
Don't worry, there'll be links in the description as well.
Perfect. You can do that. And we're doing some really amazing work and really hoping to completely change the conversation about how we care for the health of all women and people with periods on the planet. So I would love to hear from you. And if you need help, if you're trying to get pregnant, you can download the app from the App Store for free for the first month. I always say use it. Just download it and work it for a whole month. Get as much out of it. Use your therapist. Use your formulator. Use, the Kai. Figure out your underlying issues and start working it. See how much progress you can make in just 1 month. And then you can decide if it's worth it for you to spend $15 a month to keep that going.
Impressive. Last 10-second thing. What is something unexpected that the AI has told you is, well, maybe you're not at this stage. If you are at this stage, what is something unexpected that the AI has told you is linked to fertility?
I don't understand the question.
That's probably because it's a nonsense question. I was wondering if you have built a learning AI that takes in data that's given to it and finds associations between what's happening to women and their fertility and health, right? Within there somewhere, there's got to be an opportunity to find unexpected links between life experience and health and fertility, yeah?
Between life experience and health and fertility. I mean, this isn't what I found, but we do have a lot of research that early trauma is a strong predictor of reproductive disease and infertility.
Psychological trauma.
Especially if it's sexual trauma, but not necessarily sexual trauma.
Wow.
And so it really tied back to Gwen's paper that really our long-term health and fertility gets set pretty early. Doesn't mean that we can't work through those with, therapists and clinicians and other strategies to manage that. But we just have to really be mindful of, just how we care for our children. Every single parent is doing the best that they can. And sometimes we're good and sometimes we're crappy. But keeping that in mind, it does make a big difference.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you very much. Gwen, if you've got a listener question, we can...
Rats. I don't have a listener question.
Well, that's fine. Kirsten, do you have a listener question?
Sure. Let me just think about the most common listener question recently. When should you go to IVF?
Okay.
Well, I clearly can't answer that. So I'm going to reflect it back at you. And Gwen, if you have anything to add, please do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm super interested to hear the answer. So, Kirsten, when should a person go for IVF?
So It's, I have no aversion to Western medicine, but I do think there's an order of operations. And I think too often this is what happens is the couple is trying for a few months, 3 or 4 months, and they tell their gynecologist, I'm not getting pregnant. They say, okay, let's use Clomid. Not telling the patient, like the woman, like, hey, this actually won't help you stay pregnant. It is only going to increase your chances of getting pregnant. So then they use Clomid. They often have a miscarriage because of it, high miscarriage rates with Clomid. It's not because the miscarriage is caught, it's not causal. It's just that the person is infertile, subfertile.
Sure.
And then they do 3 of those, and then they determine that the only option is to go to IVF. And they've bypassed this, like, oh, this person's energy is a 2 out of 10, which basically adrenal failure. They have 1 day of menstrual blood, which means there's no lining, right? Their cycle is 70 days long, so they for sure have insulin resistance. And all of those things are confounding factors that will impact a person's likelihood of getting and staying pregnant with or without IVF.
Those 3 facts you just dropped have blown my
Yeah, I
mind.
know. I'm just listening like, wow, I had no idea about this.
No, the subclinical factors associated with infertility and the clinical data are quite robust. Like having a cycle that's 26 or less days decreases your likelihood of getting pregnant by more than 50%. Plus 32 days, 60%. Exercise to exhaustion, 70% less likely. Vegan, 50% less likely. Like very, very strong. Less than 4 days of bleeding, 70% less likely to get pregnant. So really strong indicators that these subclinical factors. And so when someone says, when should I, I've had, 3 miscarriages and I've had 3 failed IUIs, and my doctor says that your only option is, and I'm 27 years old, your only option is IVF. And I'm like, that's the worst advice I've ever heard. We don't even know why you're not getting pregnant. We haven't even looked at what can we repair. Even if you have to do IVF, we still need to repair those subclinical factors so that you have a better chance of winning with your investment of $25,000. Like you wouldn't roll into Vegas with $25,000 in your pocket and be like, well, actually my odds are only about 10% because I haven't fixed these problems, but fuck it, like, just pop it out.
Wow.
So
that was amazing.
Really when to do IVF is like, I think the plan is like you're thinking about getting pregnant, use the Conceivable app for 4 or 5 months, get your score above 60. When their score is above 60, they tend to get pregnant and stay pregnant. Once that happens, try to get pregnant naturally a perfectly healthy 18-year-old will get pregnant once every 4 months. So give yourself 4 to 6 months after your score gets to 60. And if you don't get pregnant, then talk to your doctor.
I like that.
Then do testing. Then do IUIs. If that doesn't work, keep optimizing because the IUIs do push us back from the Clomid letrozole, the side effects associated. So we keep optimizing. And then you get to IVF. You've optimized as much as humanly possible. There's nothing left to do. Pay your $25,000 and take the chance if that's the trajectory that you're interested in.
Now that is a thorough answer to a good listener question. I like it. For anybody who doesn't know, IUI stands for injection under the influence. That's very important. We all know that. No, sorry, intrauterine injections, very important. Wait, no, hang on, it's intrauterine insemination.
Insemination, yeah.
I could have made a much better joke out of
It's
that.
true, I'm sorry about that. I mean, as vets, I have to say, every time I hear AI, I still think artificial insemination. So, this whole conversation has been very fertility oriented in my mind.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, IVF, well, it's funny, in Texas, we got a lot of cowboys and stuff, and one day I was doing a consultation and the husband came, and this husband shows up full Texas, like hat, belt, like big, Texas belt, boots and everything, and he was really uncomfortable with the whole period conversation. He was squirming like crazy, and he said something, and I said something about insemination, but I accidentally said ejaculation, and I thought the guy was gonna die. He was like, and I was like, no, sorry, not ejaculation. I said it again just because that's how I am. And I was like, no, not ejaculation, sorry, insemination. And he was,
You can't be a cowboy if you don't understand insemination. Like, the whole point of raising cattle is to
insemination.
Yeah.
It's a major part of the job. If you think being a cowboy is all about the hat and the spurs, you have misunderstood the amount of semen involved.
Well, I don't know if he was like a practicing Catholic cowboy or just like a poser. This is a long time ago.
Amazing. This is great. We should do this over food at some point, but now is not the time. Now is the time to close this podcast. So, thank you very much for talking to me. I will let you see yourselves out. I've been Dr. Greg Dickens.
And I've been Dr. Gwen Bradbury.
I'm Kirsten Karchmer.
And you've been listening to What's the name of this thing? Growing
It's
Up
Growing
Weird.
Up Weird, Greg. Good night.
See ya.